Hold on, wait. Is this live? Is this live? Is it? I don't know. I'm here again. Hi, it's me, the movie nerd. This is Confessions of a Movie Addict, episode 2, I guess. I think that's what the last title of this was. I'm sick, by the way, so that's why I sound a little bit nasally and why, well, fingers crossed I won't be talking as much considering the fact that I've severely been trying to limit the amount that I've been talking. But, hey, we'll see where we can go. So, yeah, you guys know me. You know everything that I've been talking about recently, and I'm just here to spitball more shit about movies, I guess. I mean, I think. News. There's a new Han Solo trailer. I still don't care about it, like, at all. Like, I watch it, it's slightly more interesting, and it looks slightly better. Okay, so here's an interesting story I heard. I heard a story about how the whole reason why Disney and Kathleen Kennedy fired Phil Lord and Chris Miller off that movie is because it was taking them too long because they were trying to have them improvise too much, so they were trying to do multiple takes rather than just go off the script. You hired 2 directors who specialize in improvisation and comedy. What the fuck did you think you were going to expect, you idiots? So, in the end, they fired them instead of the person who they should have fired, which was Alden Ehrenreich, which I don't care what anybody says. That might be the worst casting decision of all time. And I don't even really have anything against the kid. I mean, everybody was singing the praises of him after Hail Caesar, and I don't know why, because I thought that just like everything else, well, that's not true. I thought the movie was hot trash, and I think I actually put it in my worst of 2016, but he was just, I just thought he was all right. I didn't think he was anything special, but like of all the people and they were bringing up to play young Han Solo, I'm like, this fucking kid, what? Like, what? Come on. Like, not only does he look nothing like him, not only does he sound nothing like him, but it's like, his take that he's doing, it's like not even Han Solo. And like, I get that it's the whole, oh, it's an origin story. Oh, he may not have always been that way. All the typical bullshit excuses that come, but it still comes down to the fact that this was a movie that nobody was asking for. It is based solely purely on nostalgia. And it just goes to show that, well, I can't, because I'm singing Disney's praises 1 minute and I'm bashing them the next, so I don't fucking know. I guess my problem should be with Kathleen Kennedy, because she's just not making the most of the potential that she has. She is, I feel like she's focusing too much on bringing in the bucks and not enough on the creativity. Now, say what you will about Kevin Feige, but at the very least, he has the creative spirit in heart in addition to the money side. And as of right now, Kathleen Kennedy is only focused on the money. And she makes the mistakes of leaving the movies to individual auteurs instead of having one person oversee the entire trilogy, and then she wonders why they get such a massive critical backlash with The Last Jedi, which the movie still made over $1 billion, but it's looking like it's going to be the Amazing Spider-Man 2 syndrome, where even though the movie makes a lot of money, the critical backlash is enough to seriously like deteriorate their plans for that. So I'm not going to talk about The Last Jedi now. I'll talk about that on a different episode, but I have a lot of problems with that movie, and I don't think it's very good. But that's just me. So I just wanted to kind of dedicate this episode to, that's really the only news story that I cared about. There was a bunch of other ones that I don't feel like looking up. Oh, Jason Statham's going to be in a new Killer Shark movie. That looks hilarious. I also saw a trailer for a movie that James Franco's going to be in called Future World. It just looks like a Mad Max ripoff, but Franco looks great in it, and it makes me really happy. Although, now that I'm thinking about it, he must have shot this before the whole Ali Sheedy disaster artist scandal, sex scandal thing happened. So, but still, even so, he looks to like not be affected by it at all, which is good, because he's one of the celebrities that I think the claims were complete and total bullshit. But again, you know, what do I know? Because I thought that, you know, I'll still watch any Kevin Spacey movie, even though fucking he's a pedophile. I can't watch Louis, though. That's the weird thing. I don't know. Maybe it was just because I was never as into him as everybody else was. But like, everybody's saying like how I Love You, Daddy is fantastic, and I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, that's one that I don't want to make time to watch. Like, you were never really here, which is a new Joaquin Phoenix movie that leaked online. I'm gonna watch that. There's that Alex Ross Perry movie that leaked online that I want to watch that. The Nicolas Cage and Selma Blair movie, Mom and Dad, I want to watch that. Couple other Netflix movies that I do want to see. Oh, the Chiwetel Ejiofor movie where he plays the pastor. I can never remember the name of that movie. I think it's called Come Sunday, is getting dropped on Netflix that weekend. That looks great. But apparently Netflix has really been shitting the bed this year, which is really kind of disappointing because I watched a lot of movies that they had last year, and they actually had a fairly decent amount of good ones. So really kind of disappointing that the streaming giant which is knocking it out of the park with original content, is absolutely like sucking at movies, considering their only, I would say, really solid movie this year has been A Futile and Stupid Gesture, which is still top 5 of the year for me. But I'm going to get to that a little bit later. I also wanted to just cover, because I saw A Quiet Place this past weekend too. And again, I'm going to be covering like all the movies that I've seen so far this year later on. But I just wanted to talk about Quiet Place and movie hype for a little bit, because it's kind of like the third in a string of movies that I've seen so far this year that is kind of like so far defining the year of 2018 for me, which is where so far, and I'm actually impressed by this because it's one of the biggest problems that I had with movies over the last 2 years, is that movies for the most part this year have been ranging from actually being surprisingly really good to so bad that they were at the very least entertaining. And I would say that I've really only seen 2 movies that kind of fall into like the generic bad movie that just offers nothing up and just that I'm bored with so far this year. Because even like I've seen 2 bad movies this year that were like so spectacularly bad that they were just fascinating to watch. And that would be A Wrinkle in Time and the 1517 to Paris. But then but like the only 2 bad movies that I would say that I saw this year that were like just boring and like nausea inducing and like why it just felt like a waste of time, which for me is worse than bad movies that are entertaining, because at the very least bad movies that are entertaining or I can have a blast with. And that would be Pacific Rim Uprising and Red Sparrow. And then, so back to my mediocre movies argument, but the interesting thing about it is that a lot of the movies that I found mediocre so far this year are movies that like people are really, really divided on. Specifically, I can think of 2 examples, and they're 2 Netflix movies, The Cloverfield Paradox and Mute. Now, there are a couple other ones that are in there, but I feel like A Quiet Place is the third movie in this chain of movies that I'm seeing so far this year where it's either completely divided, where I'll see one group of people that absolutely love them and another group of people absolutely despise them. Or in the case of Mute and Clover, that was really only with A Quiet Place, but at least with Mute and The Cloverfield Paradox, like everybody that saw online like despised those movies. I thought that they were like, oh my god, this is the absolute worst. And yeah, those 2 movies did have problems, but are they stinking hot pieces of trash? Hell no. I've seen way worse than those movies. Like whenever people compare that, and because I've heard a lot of comparisons of this decade to the 90s, and I'm like, did you watch Twister, The Haunting, Steel, Spawn, Batman and Robin, Godzilla 98, Inspector Gadget? Like, I'm sorry. The shitty movies that are coming out so far now kind of don't hold a candlestick to the ones from the late 90s, at least not from this one. It's like, so that's why I feel like little people on the internet are just complaining for no reason at all. But then again, that's just me and I'm an idiot, so what do I know? So I'm going to take a little bit of a break from movies, because even though I am called Movie Nerd, I still do cover TV as well. And I'm just going to kind of go through some of the TV seasons that I've seen this year and just kind of give you my quick thoughts on them. So let's get into it. So I've seen... Now, granted, some of these series have just started, so I can't really give like a full analysis of it. I think in total, I've only finished like one of these series. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, just about 8, because I don't count like the shows that started in the fall of last year, like Legends of Tomorrow or Brooklyn Nine-Nine or The Flash or any of the other like dumb shows cable shows that I watch. Because like when I typically regard them with their start date, not when they end date. So like I count those shows as like still in 2017. So that's why I'm not going to get into that one tonight. So, what I've seen. So, surprise, surprise, a lot of them are on Netflix, because Netflix is still killing it with the original series. So, I've got, surprisingly, only 3 Netflix series on here. I've got The End of the Fucking World, On My Block, and Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events Season 2. Now, my thoughts on End of the Fucking World, I only got through 2 episodes of, but I like what I've seen. It seems to be continuing Channel 4's tradition of really interesting, engaging new teen dramas. Of course, ever since Netflix bought out Channel 4, Channel 4 is the TV station that gave us Skins, Misfits, Black Mirror. I think they also were doing Derek, but that might have been after Netflix bought them. Ricky Gervais has done a bunch of stuff with them. Some really, really good stuff that they've done in the past. And His one. It definitely had promise. The two leads, Alex Lothar, who was in that one episode of Black Mirror, and the other girl, I can't remember her name off the top of my head right now. They're both very, very good in it. They're both very funny. It's interesting to see the dichotomy between the two of them because one's pretty much just like an angsty teen with like legitimate problems, while the other one is like a low-key sociopath, but it's interesting to see the two of them bounce off of each other. I'll get back to it at some point, but I just, for some reason, it didn't latch me at first like some of the other Channel 4 series are, but I'll definitely have to get back into it, give it a watch, because it is nice and short, only 8 episodes. On my block is quite possibly one of the best new original series that I've seen in a while. And by the way, fuck you, Dustin, if you actually are listening to this, for saying that show is terrible, because you haven't even watched it yet, and you've criticized me how many times for not watching things and giving them a chance. But contrary to your belief, I do actually find this show to be very real and very authentic. And I also find that the comedy could be, if handled by a lesser creator, could be very goofy and very, very out of place and annoying and obnoxious and in your face, but I feel like the writing and the portrayals by these actors, who I would say a very, very fine bunch of young actors, nothing like incredibly special. I'm not talking like to the level of Stranger Things, but like very, very good. This show has a lot of elements of dope in it, where it's basically following around these 4 ethnic kids who live in a rough neighborhood in California as they're entering their first year of high school. The show is a comedy, but it doesn't shy away from going dark. Specifically, the finale absolutely is so effing dark. Some stand-up performances that I can send to are the lead, Sierra Capri as Monse, and then Brett Gray as Jamal, who is the skinny black kid who is coming up with a different injury every week in order to show his parents that he can't play football, and also is searching for the treasure that belonged to a heist that went down in the 80s that is still to this day not confirmed. It's a it's a hilarious little subplot, but I feel like every one of these characters, they do a really good job of introducing them. The energy, the frenetic energy that this show has is really, really good. I highly recommend it. Nice, quick 10 episodes. You can get through it really nice. Like I said, if you're a fan of teen dramas, if you're a fan of some really good comedy, I definitely recommend that. And then the last Netflix series, which is just a continuation. Like, I don't even know why I continue to watch this series, because it's fucking disgusting, like this show. Like, no joke. Like, the Lemony Snicket series of unfortunate events show that is on Netflix is one of the biggest abominations, not just to the world of television, but to the world of just art and media that I've seen in quite a long time. Then again, what should I expect from the genius Barry Sonnenfeld that gave us the back-to-back hits of Men in Black 3 and 9 Lives? I think there was something else in between there, but honestly, I don't care enough to remember. And then, so I should have known better, considering I watched the entire first season. I hated it. I hated every single minute of it. This is the first show, quite possibly ever, that I've hate-watched completely. And the only thing that is getting me through is my deep love and attachment to the books, which this is just another situation where I really must just be shitty with seeing books, or I just interpret things differently, because I never once thought that the books were taking themselves too seriously, but it's like, it's not to the level of stupidity that this show just brings it. Like, it's so obvious and on the nose and obnoxious to the point that, and the set design, it looks so fake, and it's supposed to look artificial, but the characters are just, they're so ridiculously underdeveloped. They're either underplaying it or overplaying it. There's no mesh. The show is totally all over the place. Every single one of the guest stars they get are absolutely horrible. Even poor NPH, who is acting his ass off in the show. And I do have to give the dude credit, because he is one of the few actors out there that can literally like make any role at the very least entertaining, even if the material that he has is absolutely awful. And it kills me to see him wasted as Count Olaf when, like, I didn't even really like the movie, the first adaptation of Lemony Snicket that happened, but like, it was still better than this shit. Like, at the very least, that one was tonally consistent. This shit is all over the place, and it just continued into season 2. But what probably makes season 2 even worse than season 1 is season 2 is trying to be slightly, I guess you could call it clever. I don't call it clever, but I think they're trying to, like, little in-jokes and, like, appealing to an audience. Like, they appear, like, the initials, like the FU initials, and it's like, oh, it's just annoying to watch. I don't even know why I'm still bothering with it. I'm 3 episodes in. I'll be able to get it over with. The good news is there's only one more season after this, because they're going to wrap up the books, because the formatting of it is that every 2 episodes is an adaptation of one of the books. So the first season was 8 episodes, so that did the first 4 books. And then this season is 10 episodes, so that does books 5 through 9. And then the last season is going to be another 8 episodes, and that's going to wrap up the entire series. So we'll see how it ends. maybe I don't have any hopes for it because this show is still gross and basically hate watching at this point. Moving on to some better TV shows. Assassination of Gianni Versace, American Crime Story, is a follow-up to The People vs. OJ, which was a critical smash when that came out 2 years ago in 2016. There was a little bit of a shakeup after the show ended because Ryan Murphy was originally going to make the second season of this show, all about Hurricane Katrina, but then there was and then he announced this season as being the third season, but then there was a cast shakeup with Katrina. He couldn't get the actress that he wanted or something, and there was like a story shakeup. He ended up basing it off a different book, and then he ended up pushing this season, Assassination of Gianni Versace, to the forefront. I watched 3 episodes of the show. It's finished now. I'm going to get to it at a later date, but this show, as a follow-up to OJ, it's extremely underwhelming, but I'm also kind of being unfair because the show does have a lot of good moments. Like I said, it's really, really unfair to compare this to OJ because it is so different, tackling such different subject matters. Also, there's the fact of serial killers are usually so hard to do right. When they're done right, they're done amazingly. But, so the whole point of the show is that it starts, the first episode is the murder, Cunanan killing Versace, and then it works its way backwards, and it tells the story out of chronological order and just shows, kind of Cunanan's. Well, the first couple episodes after the pilot episode is just Cunanan killing random people, and he may as well be a cameo in his own show because prior to, as opposed to the title, the show does focus a lot more on Cunanan. So much to the point that whenever they do flashbacks of Versace and his background, it almost feels completely distracting, which sucks because the show does have some great, solid performances. From what I've seen of Darren Criss as Cunanan, he is fantastic, but I definitely need to see a little bit more of him because I don't find him to be a particularly relatable character, which it's understandable. He's a goddamn serial killer, but I need him to be a little bit more relatable. They started and it had potential from what I saw, but like I said, I don't think I like the storytelling method. But when you actually think about it, there really is kind of no other choice because Cunanan killed himself 9 days after he killed Versace, so they couldn't get any sort of confession or his own version of the event. So what they're doing, they're literally spitballing, and that might not have been the best choice creatively, but Ryan Murphy was doing something that he was passionate about, and hey, he's putting his all into it. And like I said, there are some fantastic performances in it. Shout out to Edgar Ramirez, my guy, who I have loved in every single thing that I've seen him in, except for Wrath of the Titans, but that's a whole different thing, because that movie's a piece of shit. And Penelope Cruz as his sister, Donatella, she, one episode, knocked my socks off with how good she was, and then she didn't appear in the next couple. Also, shout out to Max Greenfield, who had a quick, tiny pop-up in the second episode as a prostitute, a male prostitute in Florida who Cunanan befriended. I honestly was shocked I didn't even recognize him at first. And then Judith Light as the wife of one of Cunanan's victims, Lee Miglin, with whom he was carrying on an affair. She was spectacular. So yeah, I gotta finish it. I know that Finn Wittrock comes in and is another one of Cunanan's victims, and I heard that I believe the actor's name is Jean Briones, is absolutely spectacular as Cunanan's father. So we'll see how that turns out. Like I said, it's fine, and I definitely want a little bit more, but I gotta finish it before I can make an official determination of it. And obviously, like I said, comparing this to OJ was never going to be fair in the first place, but for what it is, it's pretty good. So then we get to some of the premieres. So we have 3 series that have just recently started that I'm into. 1 debut and then 2 return, and then 3 more returning shows. I'm going to wrap up with my favorite one of the TV shows that I've seen so far. The first one that I want to cover real quick is Barry, which is the new Bill Hader, Alec Berg collaborated show on HBO. It stars Bill Hader as Barry Burke, I think is his name, who is an assassin who is tired of the assassin life, who wants to retire to California and become an actor. The thing about this show, I've seen 2 episodes. The 3rd episode just aired last night. I'm going to get to it. Is that it's very, very well written, very well done, extremely well acted. A lot of the little absurdity parts that are in just kind of everybody who moves out to LA and wants to just has that dream of breaking into acting, going to the theater classes, maintaining a job full time, doing whatever they possibly can to save on money, is really, really good. And I think the show does a pretty good job of bouncing back and forth between Barry's assassin world and Barry's acting world. The only problem that I would say that I have with it so far, and like I said, I'm 2 episodes in, so I cannot make a judgment about this at all, is that it is played extremely straight, which I know is the purpose that they're going for, but it's a little bit jarring to me because I just feel like there should be a little bit more gut-busting, laugh-out-loud moments, and I just feel like I'm not necessarily getting that. So like I said, 2 episodes in, not enough to really complain. I'm really just nitpicking about that one because I do like what I've seen. It is very well acted. Bill Hader, probably, like, the thing that's so great about Bill Hader is Bill Hader manages to change up his performances so much. Ever since he broke out with Saturday Night Live and Superbad, like, the dude has killed it. I don't think I've seen a bad performance from him. I haven't seen the Skeleton Twins, but I've heard he's great in that, and that's apparently Kristen Wiig's, like, only good performance since Bridesmaids. And I loved him in Superbad. I loved him in Tropic Thunder. Oh man, this guy's been in, so obviously, like, his SNL bit parts that I've seen are friggin' fantastic. And what was one other thing that I saw him in? I haven't seen Hot Rod either, but I heard his bit part in that is incredible. So yeah, if nothing else, watch it for Bill Hader because he's great in it. Also tiny bit parts from shut up phone. Tiny bit parts from Stephen Root, Henry Winkler, and I think that's it. Glenn Fleshler, who was in Boardwalk Empire and also recently appeared in Suburbicon, and was apparently one of the best parts about that movie, which I didn't even want to see because of how bad I heard that movie was. They're all really good in it. They're really funny. I really like his back and forth with the Chechens and, like, just how casual they are. Just like it's really funny because in weaker circumstances that would feel really obnoxious and annoying, but they managed to make the Chechens just relatable enough so that they're not. So that it's still funny. They're probably the funniest parts about the show. But like I said, very, very dry humor. Probably some of the driest humor that I've seen, at least for an American HBO comedy. Then moving on to 2 more of my returning shows, some of my favorites, one of which is just premiered last Tuesday, completely knocked my socks off again. And that's, of course, the season 2 premiere of Legion, which, holy shit, if you guys saw the first season of the show, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Because Noah Hawley, like, first he blew my mind with Fargo, which whoever thought that a TV adaptation of Fargo would be as good, if not arguably better than the movie itself. But taking the anthology format that Ryan Murphy had been doing for a couple years at that point, and arguably doing it better than Ryan Murphy did, and then jumping off of that into the world of superheroes, like, everybody's been complaining about the oversaturation of the superhero genre and how we get too much shit and how there's not enough new, unique stuff. And at first, it seemed like the solution to that would be the Netflix shows with the first season of Daredevil. But as we've seen, as time has gone on, both the Netflix shows and the CW shows have gotten really repetitive and really annoying and boring and stale. Then this show comes out of goddamn nowhere and just completely blows any standards off of any type of superhero genre, property, adaptation, whatever you want to call it, that we've seen at this point, and just creates one of the trippiest, weirdest, mind-boggling, and yet just interesting shows that I've ever seen. Like, half the time you don't even know what's going on, but it still just keeps you locked in based on your need to know what's going on, because the thing that he does so brilliantly is the main character, that is David, played by Dan Stevens, is such a great personification of the audience, in that even though he's learned more at this point, obviously from his experiences in the first season, discovering more about himself, discovering his mutant powers, discovering, like, learning more and more about it, he still has no idea what's going on for the most part. And the show does such a good job of creating this atmosphere that is constantly keeping you on your toes and never once makes you think, oh, yeah, I can figure out what's going on, because it's almost like it's always 3 steps ahead of you, and every time you think you're going to guess what's going on, it pulls the rug out from under you. And just the way that it utilizes, I'm going to call it the David Lynchian method, mostly because, like, I don't know anybody else who's perfected it the way that David Lynch has, is that every episode feels like a trippy dream sequence, but it's linear, but it isn't, and that makes no sense, and I just realized that, but it's fucking great. The premiere was great. We didn't get as much as Aubrey Plaza as I would have liked, but that's okay, because I already know that they're going to keep going with her, because Aubrey Plaza was the best part about the first season, quite possibly her best performance in Parks and Recreation, and it really sucks that she followed it up later that year with Ingrid Goes West, which was another, like, amazing, incredible performance from her. Really makes you, like, just wonder what the fuck she was doing in 2016, but of course, nice to see all the returning faces. The other thing that show did really well is it took these tiny bit part actors who like you wouldn't think would really do anything, and really managed to actually make them, like, worm your way into their little hearts with their little quirks. Like Bill Irwin as Carrie, and Jeremy Harris as Tonomy. And, oh man, who else? Rachel Keller is Sid, who Rachel Keller I thought was quite possibly the weakest part about Fargo Season 2, which, if that show even had a weakest part, because that show is arguably a perfect season of television outside of the aliens, but even the aliens, like Noah Hawley, manages to work in there really well. But yeah, she's great in this. Oh man. And also they upgrade a few people to main character status this season that were only recurring in the last season. For example, that being Jermaine Clement as Melanie's husband, Oliver, who was friggin' awesome in the last season. Just coming in out of nowhere like this 60s glam rocker who also doubles as a telepath was great. And then Hamish Linklater for his little part as the government agent who was interrogating them. Like, I really like his little bit part that they introduced. Hamish Linklater is a guy who to me just came out of nowhere because I saw him first in, was it The Big Short? I think it might have been The Big Short. Yeah, I saw him in The Big Short because he was one of the 3 guys who was part of Steve Carell's team in that one. His other 2 cohorts, of course, being Jeremy Strong and who was in The Judge, and Raphael Spall, who was in the episode of Black Mirror, White Christmas with John Hamm. And of course, now I know who all 3 of those guys are. But back then, when I saw that movie, I had no clue who those guys are. I just thought they were all fantastic. And then I see him popping up in these 2 other things, and he's just great in everything that I've seen him in. And I really like how much the finale of last season managed to give you so much of a spotlight on him and make that character so much more fleshed out. Like, the other great thing that Legion does too, that no other X-Men property, because the show is still supposedly set in the X-Men universe, but the show is so good that you don't even care. Like, it makes tiny references, like, sort of like, yes, they do acknowledge that David's dad is Professor X without actually telling you, and Patrick Stewart has said he would love to go on the show, which is great. But, like, it's one of the shows that completely works on its own, and it doesn't need to be tied down and constantly referencing anything the way that the Marvel shows do, and it really is able to exist in its own little bubble world, and it's perfect. And the episode was so weird. Literally, the last act was just like random dance sequences between Dan Stevens, Aubrey Plaza, and Jermaine Clement, and it was freaking fantastic. Legion, watch it. It's 10 episodes again this season. FX is still killing it with their original content, and unfortunately, the same cannot be said for HBO with some of their returning shows, because Silicon Valley Season 5, arguably one of the most critically acclaimed and best comedies so far this decade, returned this season for its 5th season. Returned this year for its 5th season, and it sucks. Like, it sucks hard. So, let me give some context behind that. So, Silicon Valley is a show that was recommended to me by a friend of mine. Yeah, Dustin. I already acknowledged him. He knows who he is if he is listening, but to anybody else, I'll just call him a friend of mine whose name is Dustin, and that's all that you guys need to know. But anyway, so he recommended it to me. He said it's this great comedy, and I saw a couple clips of it, and I'm like, this doesn't really seem like it's up my alley, because like at that point I was really only into like one kind of comedy. But I ended up tuning into it. I think I watched like the 6th episode of the 1st season, and I loved it. I thought it was freaking hysterical. So I ended up watching the rest of the 1st season, and then I watched the 2nd season. And then by the time I started the 3rd season, that was when I started watching it consistently. And the 3rd season is arguably the best season of the show, because what the show did before brilliantly is that it was constantly keeping these guys down, but at the same time, it was still showing you that like these guys would be smart enough to be able to always figure their way out of it, which worked for 3 seasons. And they did it really, really well. And also, it helped to bring out TJ Miller, who, as opposed to everyone else, I freaking love TJ Miller. He is absolutely hilarious. He's been funny in every single thing that I've seen him in. One of the best parts about Ready Player One. And so I started to worry about the show, though, when I found out, I don't remember if it was like at the beginning of season 4 or midway through season 4, when TJ Miller announced that he was leaving the show. And then I noticed a progressive drop in quality in season 4. Like, I just felt like they were repeating certain things. I felt like the humor wasn't hitting as hard, and I felt like the writing of the show was really just shitting on the characters and just keeping them down for the sake of keeping them down, and it didn't feel natural or organic anymore, and I just started to feel bad and sorry for the characters of the show. And then once TJ Miller leaves and this season premieres, it is hot trash one after another, because now they're basically taking everything that was great about the first couple seasons, like all the guys' little subtle quirks, all their character methods, all their subtle strength, subtle weaknesses that made them human, and just exploiting them for the purposes of jokes, because they think that that's what the audience is like, and it just feels so much more mean-spirited and not funny at all. And it's like, what happened? Like, this is one of the most critically acclaimed shows of this decade, and now it sucks. So I'm really disappointed. Although I did watch the 3rd episode today. It was a little bit of a step up from the first 2 episodes, a little bit, mostly because of how it ended, because it had a really nice, genuine ending. But for the most part, yeah, like, Kumail Nanjiani and Martin Starr, their back and forth has not been nearly as funny this season as it was last season. It's really starting to get old. Thomas Middleditch, like they're starting to turn Richard into an asshole. And that kills me, because the thing that always made Richard great is the fact that even though he was very, very flawed, and he had And like, it always seemed like the show, like, he was a character that was like designed to be shit on. Thomas Middleditch still manages to make that character so relatable and so awesome, but now he's just like, he's turning into kind of an asshole. And Zach Woods, who's been the MVP of the show, who has slowly started to climb to become the MVP of the show, even more so than TJ Miller, who was always number one for me since I started watching the show. He can't even save this season anymore, and he is still trying his hardest. And just, makes me sad, because the show was really great, and now it's not. So we'll see. I think they reduced the count of this season to another 8 episodes, so we'll see. But yeah, just makes me sad and depressed. Sorry, I had to give a moment of silence for that, because just not fun to see the amount of stuff that is starting to suck. But yeah, it's sad. But enough of that. So now we can move on to arguably the best TV show so far. That is a returning show, and it is a show that all of us fans thought that was not going to come back for a while, and it is Atlanta motherfucking Robin season. So I watched the first season of Atlanta, again, on recommendation from this guy, Dustin. You're probably going to hear his name come up a lot. You might even hear him in a podcast one time, sometime, maybe. I don't know. It all depends on him, and if I can figure out how to work Skype through this. But anyways, I watched the first 10 episodes of Atlanta, sped right through it, super nice and quick. One of the best shows I've ever seen. I was first introduced to Donald Glover on Community, as most people do, and now he is on top of the fucking world, and rightfully so, because he is so goddamn talented. Like, I have never seen a guy this talented. Like, rapper, actor, writer, director, producer. Like, is there anything this guy can't, stand-up comedian? Like, is there anything that this guy can't do at this point? So yeah, first season of Atlanta, which follows the story of Donald Glover's character, Earn Marks, who is a college dropout who discovers that his cousin, Alfred, is an up-and-coming rapper in Atlanta named Paperboy, and he decides to manage him in order to try and create a better life for the two of them. And it follows the misadventures of the two cousins. Alfred is played by Brian Tyree Henry. Alfred's right-hand man, Darius, played by Lakeith Stanfield, in another fantastic performance. That's another actor who has been knocking it out of the park since his breakout. And Earn's girlfriend, Van, played by Zazie Beetz. And the show is so funny, so quirky, so weird, in that it exposes and makes you think about so many different things just in regular life that you wouldn't think of on a regular basis. And so Robin season kicked off. Like I said, the first season ended, and they were on hiatus. They definitely said a second season was coming, but they didn't say when it was coming. And I was worried, because I thought it was going to do the Master of None and the Sherlock route, where they say, oh yeah, we're just going to come back whenever. And it made me really sad, because I really like Master of None and Sherlock. But then they announced out of nowhere, oh yeah, it's coming back. It's coming back in spring. We're going to call this season Robin season. It was going to have more of a linear story track record. And so far this season, it's just had all the quirks, all the charm, everything that I loved about the first season. Sorry, I'm sick. But still so much stuff to love. Definitely a little bit more problems, a little bit more flawed than the first season. Not as good. Particularly, I thought episodes 3 and 4, or was it 4 and 5? How many episodes do we have so far? I think it was 3 and 4. I didn't like as much, but we got to talk about this last episode. Teddy Perkins, which follows Darius, goes to pick up a piano that he saw for free on Craigslist, and he finds out that it's owned by this reclusive billionaire named Teddy Perkins, who is basically, the character is played by Donald Glover, who does whiteface for the entire performance, but it's basically kind of like a take on Michael Jackson and everything that he went through. Like, the episode makes direct references to Michael Jackson and everything that he went through, and it is quite possibly one of the most brilliant episodes of television that I've ever seen. Like, from beginning to end, it has you completely on edge, because you have no idea what's going to happen for most of it. It borrows a lot of elements from Get Out. I just find that Get Out has been having a very big influence on this season of Atlanta in general so far. It started first with the Van episode, where her and Earn went to the weird German festival, and like Earn was trying to blend in, but he just didn't like it, and then they kind of sort of broke up at the end of it. It was fine. It was whatever. It's still way better than her solo episode last season, which just felt like a waste of time. But yeah, like Darius, as he's going through this house and he's seeing all this memorabilia that this guy owns, and like this guy is clearly nuts and deranged, but it is quite possibly the best like take on the Michael Jackson situation. I call it the Michael Jackson situation because that's clearly it's obviously it's not specifically towards him. I mean, it is, but it isn't. But it's just kind of like encompassing just child stars in general that had no childhood as a result of strict parents who pushed them towards being celebrities and famous at way too young an age. And so, yeah, really, really well made, spectacularly directed. Like, the fact that Donald was, like, unrecognizable, and even on set, like, people didn't even know that was Donald in the white face makeup. And the way that episode ends is just spectacular. I'm not going to spoil it, but it's absolutely spectacular. So, yeah, that's kind of a basic rundown of all the TV seasons that I've seen so far. There's obviously going to be more to come. Just this month, Westworld Season 2 and Archer Season 9, Danger Island will be rolling out. And then next month, you've also got Dying Up Here Season 2, which more people fucking watch that show. Because it's amazing. Like, stop. If you want a good Showtime show, stop watching Shameless. Because this last season sucked. I watched like 3 episodes and it was terrible. So go watch Dying Up Here. It's amazing. And more people need to be watching it because it's great. So now that TV's done, we can move on to movies, which is, of course, a subject. So we're in April right now, and I'm just going to kind of run through every movie that I've seen so far and just kind of give you my thoughts on it and kind of just sum up my overall take on the year of 2018 in general. Oh, wow, still at 34 minutes. I'm actually surprised with how short I've been keeping these podcasts. But anyway, so, I just got a Tinder message from a single mom. We'll see how that turns out. 5 guesses as to how it will. So at number 16, we have the 1517 to Paris, Clint Eastwood's latest example that he should no longer direct because that movie was fascinatingly bad in that some of the worst child performances ever. His one take style is very, very apparent. Casting the actual people from the event instead of real actors in an allusion to acts of valor, which I didn't see, but I've heard horrible things about. Like, was anybody expecting this movie to actually be good? I mean, I guess it's honoring these heroes and everything like that, but still, forcing them to relive the trauma that very traumatic event, I feel like is kind of detrimental to the whole purpose of the story. Plus, the fact that you hire the real guys, like, these guys can't act for shit, and it makes us less invested. And it also doesn't help that every single other person in the movie is just absolute garbage. But yeah, so I think I gave that like a 1 out of 10 stars. I don't remember. I'm not going to do ratings on here. I'm honestly just considering just like stopping ratings of all movies and just say, I liked it. It was or it sucked. So I'll put more on that later. Number 15 is Red Sparrow, which is Jennifer Lawrence's latest example that she is just sick of acting, which is disappointing because she's still really great. Outside of some really, really gorgeous looking set design and I guess some intrigue. Like, it's got a really cool opening scene, but the movie is really like sleep-inducing. I mean, they said that it's like more of a grittier version of James Bond crossover with like an origin story for Black Widow. I didn't get any of that sense. I just thought it was boring. I fell asleep twice within the first 20 minutes, and I barely remember anything else that happens in it. Her uncle, who's Matthias Schoenaerts, is like really creepy towards her, and she ends up setting him up in the end. It's really convoluted. It's almost like Atomic Blonde, but without any of the action or the stuff that made that movie cool. Just keep the convoluted plot and the really cool set design, and then just cast a less interesting lead. That's basically what Red Sparrow is. Then moving on, number 14, another generic entry, Pacific Rim Uprising, which, like I said, I'm really am an idiot for thinking that this movie was going to be anything more than a generic studio-mandated sequel, which sucks. I do like Stephen S. at Night and what he did with that first season of Daredevil, but then again, TV versus film, I should know all this better. I mean, Boyega's good in it, but Boyega, I feel like, is going to be one of the few people that is going to be good in anything you seal him in, but everything else about this movie is basically as generic could be. It doesn't have any of the fun or goofiness that the first movie had. Guillermo del Toro is definitely, his creative flair is definitely missing from this one, and somehow this movie, even though the effects are slightly better, I guess, I mean, they're in daytime, so they're a little bit more polished, but that also makes them look a little bit more cartoony, but also there's somehow less fighting in this movie, which is really disappointing, because that's kind of the whole point of these Pacific Rim movies, is they're supposed to have a lot of fighting in them. But yeah, and then Charlie Day, there's a twist. I'm just going to spoil it because I don't care, because nobody should see this movie. He turns out to be the villain because the aliens like possessed his brain from the last one, which is really disappointing because I thought he was really, really entertaining and enjoyable and fun in the first movie, and now he's a bad guy, and it's just really sad. And then this movie has the exact same ending as Independence Day Resurgence, which I should have seen coming, but at the same time, like, I'm still like, really? Just Independence Day Resurgence is still worse, but yeah. Don't go watch this movie. Like, nobody should watch this movie. And then after that, number 13, you have Den of Thieves, which is a movie that I did not like at all, but everybody else hated. Because to me, this movie is nothing but a Heat ripoff, except it does nothing new or interesting with the premise outside of 2 standout performances, I would say, which are Gerard Butler, which this is the first thing that I've seen him in quite possibly ever, where he is just electric on screen. Like, I have no idea how he is this good in this movie, but he just is. And O'Shea Jackson Jr., who's been 3 for 3 for me ever since I saw him in his breakout in Straight Outta Compton. Like, this dude is a good fucking actor and needs to be in more great shit, and he seems to be making all the right choices. Disappointed in my man Pablo Schreiber, though, my guy, Matt Sweeney from American Gods, because I definitely found that he was given little to nothing to do in this movie, which sucks because what he did have in his screen time, I thought he knocked out of the park, but the problem is they gave him nothing to do, and then 50 Cent is just in this movie for no reason at all. The scene with him and his daughter is one of the most shoehorned-in scenes I've ever seen, but yeah. Outside of Gerard Butler, O'Shea Jackson Jr., this movie is nothing but a ripoff of Heat. It's got one of the most forced twist endings of all time that I've ever seen. It is 2.5 hours, which makes it way too long. All the subplots like don't need to be there. Like you could cut out like half of this movie and it wouldn't make any bit of a difference. So yeah, don't like this movie. Not good. Moving on. Number 12 is A Wrinkle in Time, which this movie makes its spot here solely because I was stoned out of my mind when I watched it, and it was one of the most entertaining experiences I've ever had because from the first minute of this movie sets the tone of this is just so goofy, so out there, and so just ridiculous to the point of insanity. And the kid performances are, I'm not going to say they're, well, no, because 1 out of the 3 kids is pretty good, but she's like, it's kind of like saying that like, I suck at metaphor. So I'm just gonna say the lead chick, Storm Reed, is okay. Fucking the other 2 kids are terrible. Derek McCabe is so hilarious to watch though, especially when he goes evil because he goes evil like halfway through. And then Levi Miller, I fucking hate him in this movie because he does the stupid thing where it's like, the kid that talks like an adult and doesn't sound like a kid and all. And then the minute that Reese Witherspoon pops up on screen is, I think she's Mrs. Watson, and she is just like completely bug-eyed and out there. And then she turns into like when they transport them to a different planet, which of course they can travel through the power of emotion or whatever. And then they get transported to this like other planet, and she turns into this giant green CGI tree thing for no reason. And then Mindy Kaling and Oprah Winfrey, the other 2 spirit things. Mindy Kaling just cracks pop references. And then Oprah Winfrey, they literally just like, they're like, oh, look at the giant goddess, Oprah. And she's literally just in a giant chicken suit the entire time. And I'm like, okay, so whatever. This movie is all sorts of wacky and bonkers, but it does have some genuine moments. For example, Chris Pine is easily the best part about this movie because for his very limited amount of screen presence that he has, he does such a good job making that role so endearing. And like the moments between him and the daughter are legitimately great, and I do have to give the movie a lot of props. But yeah, this movie is just bonkers. If there was ever a movie to watch absolutely stoned, I would fucking watch it like easily. And then after that, moving on, number 11, we have The Cloverfield Paradox, Netflix movie. Everybody's talked about this movie to death at this point. I don't hate this movie. It definitely has problems, and it is very, very obvious that there were some last-minute reshoots in order to try and tie this into the Cloverfield universe, but Paramount dodged a freaking, not even a bullet, like a fucking rocket with this movie when they sold it to Netflix, because they still managed to, because not only did they manage to save all that money they would have spent on the marketing, but then Netflix didn't even have to freaking pay anything for marketing because they dropped it right after the Super Bowl. And so the performances in this movie really are not that bad. For the most part, they're all really good. I like the cast that they have here. Very, very good cast. Probably the only 2 that I don't like are Elizabeth Debicki and Axel Henny. But other than those 2, like, I really enjoy the cast here. The effect, the sets could use a little bit more to them. Like, they do kind of look a little bit generic. But for the most part, it's enjoying and intriguing. And it's a good space movie, so I don't think it deserves all the hate that people get. And moving on, number 10 is Mute. Now, before you people jump down your throat, I had a lot of problems with this movie, but I still enjoyed it a lot. I liked Alexander Skarsgård. Paul Rudd gives quite possibly one of the best performances of his entire career, if not his entire career in this movie. Like I said, the movie has some problems script-wise, and some characterizations are kind of all over the place and don't really make sense. And the sci-fi setting is completely unnecessary, but I find the mystery intriguing enough. The twists and turns were enough to keep me invested. The bad performances in here, which were awful, are at least cut out really quickly, and I'm intrigued enough until the very end, and I think the ending is pretty cool. So, Mute, yeah, Duncan Jones, get better, I guess. It's not your worst one. Well, actually, no, out of the 3 I've seen from you, it is kind of your worst one, because I would probably take Warcraft over this. Although Warcraft, Warcraft did have a lot of problems. Like, the only interesting thing about the Warcraft was the orcs versus, at least with this movie, like, I was invested in both Skarsgård and Paul Rudd's journey. So, you know what? I'll put this over Warcraft, sure. Warcraft, this even had better effects than Warcraft, and this was a Netflix movie. So, sure. Then moving on, number 9 is a movie I just saw, A Quiet Place. My full review is coming for that later on, but my thoughts on that, again, right in the middle. I don't think it's this amazing horror masterpiece that everybody makes it out to be, but I also don't think that it is a piece of shit. I think it's got some really cool moments. I think it's got some really stupid moments. I think the scares when they are there, they hit perfectly. But I think a lot of the kind of the downtime is kind of really just meh and whatever. And it's just kind of them trudging along. The sound design and the cinematography is absolutely gorgeous. And of course, I have a soft spot for this movie because it was shot like 20 minutes away from my house. But yeah, Quiet Place. I haven't decided on a rating yet, but I will eventually get there. Then moving on, number 8, we have Ready Player One, Steven Spielberg's new movie. Enjoyed it, not as much as the book though. A lot of good parts, a lot of parts that I found were really just kind of meh. I also didn't like a lot of the sequences that people like. The Shining sequence I found to be very slapstick. The end Drive sequence was slapstick. They didn't do a good job of really setting up the world, which again, it worked for the purpose of the book, but not for the movie for me at least. I thought Ty Sheridan was fine, but not great. Olivia Cooke, Lena Waithe, definitely some of the standouts in this, even though Olivia Cooke, not as good as I would have hoped, kind of a ditz in this movie. Mark Rylance, though, shocked me in that I didn't absolutely despise him, and I actually thought he managed to turn that role of James Halliday into a very layered and three-dimensional role. I really wish I'd had a little bit more of like the smaller Spielberg magical moments in that. The VFX, though, and the setting up of the Oasis, incredible, and the awesome nostalgic moments, like the beginning with the race and then the end war fight scene were freaking awesome. So problems with it, yes, I did have, but it was still a very enjoyable experience. And is it the best that Spielberg's done in a while of this decade? Probably. But then again, I haven't seen Warhorse or Lincoln or Adventures of Tintin, but like compared to Bridge of Spies and The Post, like I'll freaking take it. And then moving on, we have Gringo, which is a movie that is a hot mess as a script, like so all over the place script-wise, but has some of the funniest performances and some of the best, like, just crazy bonkers moments that I've ever seen. One of the best trailers of the year so far, easily. David Oyelowo, quite possibly his best performance. Edgerton and Charlize Theron are both so freaking good playing the slimy corporate nutballs, but they also do actually a really good job of giving them a lot more character depth. Specifically Charlize Theron, I just wish that, like, her whole character arc actually had something to do with the movie. This is the biggest example I can think of like really focusing way too much on characters and not enough on story. Couple wastes in the movie. Amanda Seyfried, there's no reason for her to be in this movie, even though she is good with her a little bit of scenes. Thandie Newton, again, no reason to be in it. The only reason why I'm not going to say she's absolutely awful is because she's barely in it, and her tiny scenes that she's in it, and like, okay, she just plays a bitch, but like, I feel like that was just a poorly written role. Like, I wouldn't necessarily blame Thandie Newton for that. And then Charlton Copley is pretty funny. Like, his back and forth with Oyelowo was great. And the action sequences, when they do happen, are great. Like, Oyelowo's character is just so much more fleshed out than you would think. But still, like, definitely a misleading marketing campaign and a friggin' mess of a script. But Gringo's still a very entertaining time in the theater. I gave this a 5.5 out of 10 when I first ranked it. But I don't know. I don't know if that rating sticks now that I think about it in the benefit of hindsight. And moving on, number 6 is Game Night. Probably the best comedy so far this year. I'm only going to say that I have Futile and Stupid Gesture over this, but that's like more of a comedy biopic than like a straight up comedy. Bateman, McAdams, fantastic chemistry, really, really great premise, really great setup, some legitimately solid twists and turns that I did not see coming. Some amazing scene-stealing performances from Jesse Plemons, Billy Magnuson, and Kyle Chandler. Some actually surprisingly impressive cinematography. They really like went into the full mantra of gaming because like some of the wide shots, they specifically model it to look like an actual board game. And then it also has a twist ending very similar to Central Intelligence, which came out 2 years ago, where they even bring in a famous TV star for the villain role. This time it's Michael C. Hall from Dexter. And it's really refreshing to see a comedy that good. The only major gripe that I had with it is I thought the message was a little bit too simple and easy to get across, which I know that's to be expected from these types of comedies, but still, like, I'm just really getting sick of it. It's like, oh, he just wanted to be like his brother the entire time, and that was a simple, quick, easy fix to everything. And it's like, no, I mean, I get it. It's a comedy. It's obviously not going to have like some really solid stakes, but like I've seen some great comedies that have been able to like have some solid, legitimate stakes. So I don't know. That's just a nitpick though. And then moving on, number 5, we have the only good really, really good Netflix movie that I've seen so far this year, A Futile and Stupid Gesture. Great ode and biopic about Doug Kenny, the creator of National Lampoon. Will Forte, quite possibly the best performance that I've ever seen from him. Donald Gleason, so freaking leveled and layered. Like, Donald Gleason, talk about quite possibly one of the best breakout stars so far this decade. Like, everything that I've seen this guy in, outside of Star Wars, which I think he is so ridiculously over the top in those movies for no reason. But like Black Mirror, Harry Potter, Ex Machina, The Revenant, American Made. Oh, what was the other thing that I saw him in that I'm totally drawing a blank on? Was it Raw that he was in? Because he was in 4 movies in 2015. Ex Machina, Star Wars, The Revenant. Might have been Brooklyn. Could have sworn he was in something else, though. Anyways, the point being, he's great in this. The seeing the formation of National Lampoon was freaking awesome, and just seeing like the behind the scenes and the making of some of my favorite comedy movies, Vacation, National Lampoon's Vacation, Caddyshack, Animal House. It was freaking awesome. The celebrities didn't really know, what's it called? The celebrity impersonations, they weren't the best. Like getting the chick from Glow as Gilda Radner, and getting the guy from I'm Dying Up Here, John Daly, as Bill Murray. Those really stood out. I think they also had Seth Green in there as Christopher Guest. That one really stood out to me. But I gotta say, though, I was really impressed. Joel McHale did a good job as Chevy Chase. Definitely took some notes from the set of Community. And then, and David Wayne did a spectacular job portraying him. And I like the twist at the end concerning Martin Mull, because Martin Mull's playing an older Doug Kenny. That's kind of narrating the entire thing. But if you know, like, what happens to Doug Kenny in the end and, like, how he dies, then you'll know that he never actually got to be Martin Mull's age. So I think that kind of twist is really, really nice. Really great, really sweet, really down-to-earth movie. Definitely not like a lot of the typical biopics we get now. And I'm really, really happy that we got this and we got it. And this came out. Then number 4, Black Panther. I've already sung this movie's praises to high hell, so I'm probably going to skip this one. Just another example of Marvel doing it right. Ryan Coogler, best possible choice for this movie. Chadwick, Michael B. Jordan, every single member of this cast, absolutely great. Establishing the character of Wakanda as this force to be reckoned with. Setting up for Infinity War while at the same time still managing to be its own self-contained story. Great. I've already said enough. Moving on to my number 3 choice, which is Annihilation, which director Alex Garland, good freaking God. This guy may as well be a god at this point. I'm not joking. He may as well be a god. First with Dread, then with Ex Machina, now with this. So this movie, I would definitely say it's the weakest out of those 3, but it's by no means, it's kind of like a 3 Billboard situation where it's like, even though it's the weakest out of the 3 movies that he's done or worked on, it's still freaking fantastic. Definitely one of the best uses of sci-fi that I've ever seen, and one of the most different, sci-fi movies that I've ever seen. Oh my God, the freaking bear scene. I don't even know if that thing is a bear. That is absolutely petrifying. And the ending, probably one of the best endings I've seen in a very long time. His use of CGI in this movie to really create this scope and really make you understand this world that you are in. It's creating a new world, but at the same time, they still have to destroy it, and it just makes you ask so many questions about it. And by the time the movie ends, you still have no idea what's going on or what's happening. But that is by no means a detriment to this movie, because what this movie does so well is it manages to wrap up all of the things that are happening within the main story, but for the purposes of the world, you're still left asking so many questions. Just because the Shimmer is gone, is it really gone? Are they clones? Well, what happens now? What even was the Shimmer? We don't even know. It is, you are never told what the Shimmer is, but it is just still so freaking brilliant. Annihilation, mwah, Alex Garland. I just keep doing whatever you want, because you're clearly doing something right. Then we're moving on to my number 2, which I know a lot of people are going to have a problem with, but I don't care because it's my list, and that is Unsane, which is one of the best thrillers I've seen in a while. Steven Soderbergh made his comeback last year from retirement with Logan Lucky, which was a movie that, it wasn't a bad movie, but it was definitely a movie that I was expecting to like a lot more. Still had some really great performances and some really touching, heartfelt moments, but this movie, on the other hand, oh man, talk about tension building in all the best ways possible. And I know people are already saying, oh, it's a Cuckoo's Nest ripoff. Fuck that, because this movie was great. And Claire Foy gives, oh my God, one of the best. I didn't think anybody was going to touch Natalie Portman for Annihilation. And then she comes in out of nowhere, and she does unlikable so much better than I think anybody that I've ever seen her in. And her accent leaves a little bit to be desired, and the cinematography, because it's shot on an iPhone, it's a little bit distracting at points, but overall, the main tension establishment in here is great. Jay Farrow as in supporting is fantastic as her, he manages to take the black best friend mantra and kind of her guide throughout it to kind of explain everything to her, and just manages to make that character so much more fleshed out than you would think. And even though the movie does have kind of 2 different conflicting storylines by the end of it, where it's because for the first half of it, you're trying to decide whether she's actually crazy or not, and then you find out that the whole thing, it's this insurance scam that the place is running, so it turns out that she's not crazy, and then you find out that her stalker is not only real, but is actually working there, and is actually a real thing, but the movie, I think, does a really good job of it, and the badass moments that it has are friggin' badass. So yeah, Unsane, my number 2, Steven Soderbergh, way to go, way to make your comeback. And then my number 1 movie of the year is Oh man, I gotta take a breather here because I've been talking like nonstop for like 45 minutes now, and contrary to a lot of different people's beliefs, I do need breath because I am a human being. I'm not a robot. And my number one is Thoroughbreds. And this movie takes the idea of fucked up to a whole new level because this movie is so dark, so like just out there and like wicked and twisted and hilarious, and it's a coming of age story, but it's a horror movie, but it's also a dark comedy, but it's got two of the best like female lead performances ever, like Anya Taylor-Joy and Olivia Cook. Like they honestly, I can officially say they both deserve Oscar nominations for this movie. I am not kidding at all. They both deserve Oscar nominations for that movie. From the minute they opened their mouths and started talking, the dialogue is just so clever, so witty, because Olivia Cook is a freaking sociopath in this movie, and she is still like one of the most relatable characters ever. Like the fact that she's even saying this, like she uses the technique, like she freaking fakes crying and has been doing it since she was like 9 years old. Like, ugh, like that's really freaking weird. And then Anya Taylor-Joy ends up somehow becoming even more effed up for her, so much to the point that Olivia Cook even has to tell her, like, yeah, you're not doing this for the right reasons. You're being emotional. Stop. And it's great. And I love it. And this movie's so good, and it sucks that it's probably the last time that I'm ever going to see Anton Yelchin on screen. I know that we've got one more season of Troll Hunters coming out, and I don't know how much of the dialogue he recorded for that, but that kills me that he died, because he is... oh, so good. The cinematography is gorgeous. The set design is gorgeous. It is just so dark and messed up in all the best ways possible. And I can't say any more than that because I really don't want to spoil it, because this is a movie that just everybody needs to watch. I was texting everybody about this movie after it came out. It's my favorite movie of the year. It's honestly, of all the movies that I've seen so far this year, this one is probably going to have the best arguments for making its way to my best of the decade once I do that, which, oh man, I'm not looking forward to making that list because, yeah, for obvious reasons. But those are all the movies so far that I've seen from 2018. This weekend, I am planning on seeing Rampage and Truth or Dare. Isle of Dogs has not hit any theater near me yet, but I'm also very much looking forward to that. And then, obviously, you got the big one coming at the end of the month, the big Mac Daddy Infinity War. I'm debating on whether I do an entire podcast episode on that or whether I just... I don't know what I'm going to fucking do about it. So... just gonna start to wrap things up here, and I'm gonna start doing a song because I'm at 55 minutes, and should I bother doing this to a full hour? I don't know. Stephen Ogg got killed off on The Walking Dead this week. I don't care. Legends of Tomorrow season finale is tonight. Cool. Fuck off. Silicon Valley is not better without TJ Miller. Get out of here. I'm reading like the news entries that pop up on my Google feed. Anything interesting like happening on Facebook? I don't know. 56. Okay, so 4 more minutes. Let's see if I can do this. Random Facebook post. Oh, I'm in a group called Fantastic Film Fans Plus whatever. They like change their name of it like every 3 goddamn seconds. So I'm just gonna read off some posts from there just to like see like just this is the absurdity that I get to read on a daily basis. Jason O'Siren shared a link. Attention all Canadians. MoviePass competitor Cinemia quietly launches in Canada. Great, it's Canada. Who gives a shit? Trailer for The Meg. That looks freaking hilarious. Moving instrumental piece, A Quiet Place. And it's just a picture of Jim from The Office with that. Yeah, okay. Not funny. Avi, no one's joining you. Christian Becker boasted his review of Blockers. Yeah, I don't care. I'm not going to see that. I don't care how... Ike Barinholtz could give, like, friggin' the best performance of the year in that movie. I'm still not going to see it. It doesn't look interesting to me. Teddy Silva. Holy shit, you were never really here. Yes, I'm going to watch it, Teddy. I'm going to watch it. Don't worry. It's online. I'm going to watch it. Black Panther release date is happening. Yeah, Brendan Fraser with that gut. I still haven't watched Trust, by the way, which I heard that he's really good in it, which is nice because I haven't seen Brendan Fraser in years. Oh my god, A Quiet Place is not worth 100% to fuck Rotten Tomatoes. If cannibalism was made legal for 24 hours and you could eat one, like what the fuck? Seated for okay. This was cool. Spike Lee's Black Klansman, produced by Jordan Peele, will open on August 10th. Fuck yeah. I have no idea what that's about, but Spike Lee hasn't directed like a mainstream movie in a while, so that looks cool. Yeah, okay. Isle of Dogs is his weakest, but it's still pretty fucking great. Okay, whatever. There's been a bunch of that's happened. Hereditary, hopefully. Fun fact, so I thought that the little girl in Hereditary was the same girl in friggin' A Quiet Place, but I don't think it is. So the girl in A Quiet Place's name is Millicent Simmons, but the girl in Hereditary, I'm going to look this up right now, which Hereditary looks friggin' awesome. Like, that's in my most anticipated for the rest of the year, once I do my second half, is Millie Shapiro. So they are two different people. Okay, that's good to know. Awesome. I think I'm going to go now because, like I said, I'm sick and I'm exhausted and I've been talking for like an hour straight. But I'm a superhuman, so I can do that, and it's cool. So listen to this if you want, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.